howled like a banshee, a mournful cry that seemed to echo the screams of 100 lost souls. I gripped the rusted railing tighter, the skeletal metal groaning under my weight. Below, the Tequendama Falls roared, a churning white maw promising oblivion. Have I lost my mind? The question echoed in the vast emptiness of my skull as I stared into the abyss. Bogota, bathed in the dying embers of a crimson sunset, stretched out before me, a tapestry of twinkling lights and inky shadows. But it was the view behind me, the sheer, vertigo-inducing drop to the churning water below that held my morbid fascination. This was the Hotel del Salto, a monument to bygone grandeur and a notorious hotspot for the tragically departed. Nicknamed the Suicide Hotel, it had a history as dark and turbulent as the waters thundering beneath it. Built in 1923 by the ambitious architect Carlos Arturo Tapias, it was envisioned as a luxurious getaway perched on the precipice of the falls. The cascading water was meant to be a soothing backdrop, not a siren song of despair. Yet a string of inexplicable suicides cast a long shadow over the hotel, driving away guests and tainting its reputation. I, Amelia Flores, a junior researcher at the Colombian Institute of Paranormal Studies, stood here not as a tourist, but as an investigator. The whispers of hauntings and restless spirits had reached our ears, and the Institute, ever eager to separate myth from reality, had sent me to probe the chilling legends surrounding this forsaken place. The once grand hotel now stood as a skeletal shell of its former glory. The windows, like vacant eye sockets, stared out at the cascading water. Ivy crept like skeletal fingers across the crumbling facade, and the air hung thick with the scent of decay and something else. An unnatural coldness that seemed to seep into my bones, a prickling sensation at the back of my neck. The local legend spoke of the Muisca tribe, the indigenous people who inhabited these lands before the Spanish conquest. It was said that they used this very spot as a final act of defiance, leaping into the churning water to escape the cruel yoke of colonialism. Were their restless spirits now bound to this place, forever reliving their tragic demise? With a deep breath, I pushed myself away from the railing and turned to face the desolate interior. The grand lobby, once a vibrant space filled with laughter and music, was now a desolate wasteland. Cobwebs draped the crumbling pillars, and dust motes danced in the dying slivers of sunlight filtering through broken windows. A shiver ran down my spine despite the stifling heat. There was a tangible presence here, a feeling of being watched. I reached into my backpack and extracted my EMF reader, the digital device crackling with static as I switched it on. It wouldn't pick up on spirits, but a sudden spike in electromagnetic energy could be a clue, a whisper of the unseen. As I cautiously made my way through the dusty halls, the silence was broken only by the echoing crunch of my boots on the debris-strewn floor and the distant thunder of the falls. The air grew heavier with each step, the oppressive weight seeming to press down on my chest. The EMF reader remained stubbornly silent, betraying no unusual activity. A sudden gust of wind rattled a loose window pane, sending shards of glass skittering across the floor. I spun around, heart pounding in my chest, but the source of the sound remained a mystery. Pushing through a creaking door, I entered what appeared to be a guest room. The decaying furniture was shrouded in dust sheets, and the wallpaper hung in tattered strips, revealing damp patches on the wall. A suffocating stillness hung in the air, broken only by the insistent drip, drip, drip from a leaky faucet. Then I saw it, a faded photograph lying face down on the cracked nightstand. Picking it up, I brushed away the dust, revealing a scene of bygone joy. A young couple, their faces beaming with happiness, stood on the balcony overlooking the falls. The woman, dressed in a flowing white dress, held onto the man's hand, her laughter seemingly echoing across the desolate room. On the back of the photograph, a single word was scrawled in a faded, feminine hand: forever. A cold dread crept into my chest. This wasn't just a happy memory of a hotel stay. This was evidence, a window into the past. Who were these people? Were they among the countless souls claimed by the falls? Or did their story hold a deeper, more sinister secret? The air grew colder. the oppressive silence thicker. A low moan, barely a whisper on the wind, seemed to emanate from the corner of the room. My breath hitched in my throat. The moan came again, closer this time, a mournful sound that sent shivers down my spine. Grasping my flashlight tighter, I aimed its beam at the corner, expecting to find something, but the corner was empty, shrouded in an unnatural shadow that seemed to writhe and pulsate. The EMF reader, however, suddenly crackled with life, the needle jumping wildly across the scale. My heart pounded a frantic rhythm against my ribs as I took a tentative step towards the pulsating shadows. Just then, a horrifying shriek tore through the silence, a sound of pure terror and despair. I stumbled back, dropping the picture frame. The glass shattered, the photograph falling face down once more. Panic clawed at my throat. I wasn't alone. This much was clear. But who or what was sharing this desolate space with me? The air grew colder and the spectral shadows in the corner seemed to solidify. A faint, ethereal figure began to emerge, its form flickering in and out of existence. It was a woman shrouded in a white dress that seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly glow. Her face, obscured by a veil of dark hair, was contorted in a mask of agony. Her eyes, the only distinct feature, were pools of bottomless sorrow, filled with an emptiness that mirrored the abyss outside. I stood frozen, the blood draining from my face. Was this the woman from the photograph? A restless spirit forever bound to this place? The apparition drifted towards me, its form solidifying further. A wave of despair, an icy tendril of sorrow washed over me. Tears welled up in my eyes, a torrent of emotions threatening to drown me. In that moment, I understood. This wasn't a malevolent spirit, but a soul burdened by an unending grief. This woman wasn't trying to scare me. She was reliving the last moments of her life, trapped in a cycle of despair. Gathering my courage, I forced myself to speak. "Who are you?" My voice came out as a raspy whisper, barely audible in the echoing silence. The figure paused, its head tilting slightly as if acknowledging me for the first time. With a voice like the rustle of dry leaves, she spoke, her words echoing in my mind rather than my ears. "Elena." The voice was filled with a deep sadness. "I promised forever." The words were fragmented, a whisper of a story lost to time. But I understood. Elena, the woman in the photograph, had made a promise to her lover, perhaps a promise of eternal love, a promise shattered by tragedy. The image of the smiling couple from the photograph flashed through my mind. Had they been on their honeymoon? Or was this a lover's tryst gone wrong? Had one of them fallen, or was there something more sinister at play? As if sensing my thoughts, Elena's spectral form seemed to writhe in further agony. "Lost, darkness, alone." Her voice faded into a mournful whimper, the chilling echo lingering in the air. Then, with a final heart-wrenching sob, the apparition dissolved into wisps of ethereal light, vanishing completely. The oppressive coldness lifted, replaced by a heavy silence. Shaken to my core, I stared at the empty space where Elena had stood moments before. A single shimmering tear rolled down my cheek, a tear not of my own, but a fragment of Elena's despair. Suddenly, the silence was broken by a new sound, the unmistakable crunch of footsteps on the creaking floorboards outside the room. Fear shot through me. Was I not alone after all? Cautiously, I reached into my backpack and pulled out a small voice recorder, a tool we use to capture electronic voice phenomena, EVP. Turning it on, I held it close and whispered, "Who's there?" The only response was the faint echo of my voice bouncing off the dusty walls. Yet a strange feeling lingered, a presence hovering just beyond my senses. Could it be another lost soul trapped within these walls? With renewed purpose, I decided to explore further. This hotel held secrets, fragments of tragic stories echoing through its decaying halls. Elena's presence may have been a product of residual energy, a haunting echo of a past life. But the hotel itself felt alive, pulsating with an unseen force. Picking up the shattered picture frame, I carefully placed the photograph back inside. Elena's story, incomplete as it may be, was a clue. Perhaps somewhere within these decaying walls lay a record of her final moments, a document that could shed light on her tragedy. Fueled by a strange sense of obligation, I ventured deeper into the hotel's labyrinthine corridors. Each room I entered held the potential for a new discovery, a new fragment of the hotel's dark history. As dusk settled, casting long, inky shadows, I stumbled upon a hidden room, a dusty library tucked away behind a concealed doorway. The air inside was thick with the scent of aged paper and leather. Cobwebs draped the overflowing bookshelves, their spines faded and cracked. My flashlight beam illuminated a worn desk, atop which lay a leather-bound journal. With trembling hands, I opened the book. The faded ink revealed a diary, its spidery handwriting detailing a turbulent love story. It belonged to a young man named Javier, his words filled with passionate declarations for his beloved Elena. As I read, a chilling narrative unfolded. Javier's entries became increasingly frantic, detailing his fear of losing Elena. He spoke of financial woes, societal pressures, and a dark secret that threatened their love. The final entry was scrawled in a desperate hand, hinting at a forced separation, a one-way journey that left Javier heartbroken and consumed by despair. The truth became tragically clear. Javier, unable to bear the thought of losing Elena, had orchestrated a desperate plan. He'd lured her to the hotel under the pretense of a romantic escape, only to reveal his devastating secret. In the face of his despair, Elena, overwhelmed by the weight of his burden, had chosen to join him in a final tragic act. Tears welled up in my eyes. Javier and Elena weren't ghosts seeking vengeance, but victims of a cruel twist of fate. Their love story, forever etched in the pages of the diary, was a testament to their tragic devotion. With a heavy heart, I closed the diary. The weight of their story pressed upon me, a burden I now shared. Leaving the hotel the next morning, I felt a sense of responsibility to share the truth, to give Javier and Elena the peace they deserved. My report, presented at the Institute, caused a stir. The chilling history and the tragic love story garnered media attention. The Hotel del Salto, once a symbol of despair, became a monument to a love story forever stained by tragedy. While the whispers of hauntings continued, they took on a new tone. The whispers weren't of vengeful spirits, but of a couple eternally bound by love, even in death. As for me, I returned to Bogota, forever changed by my experience. The memory of Elena's mournful visage and Javier's desperate pleas remained etched in my mind. The Hotel del Salto, once a desolate monument to despair, now held a poignant beauty, a reminder of the enduring power of love and the devastating consequences of despair.